This is all about the anti-Semitism is just another word that is used in order to say somebody's anti against one's background, religion, so on and so on, so on, racist. It comes out to the word racist in the end. But in the same form, people who do these destructional things and murder and kill and do bloody murder in everybody's country, invade, do all the invasions, all these things, and then sitting up there murdering of the people that were there before them and had always been there years before them in the regions such as the Egyptians, Africans, and so on. When they speak out, those who are abroad or those who may be in another area that not that area that they want to invade and control, saying the first thing they say out their mouth is anti-Semitism. Why they use anti-Semitism is because they use that word such as because of the people and who say they are in this biblical position of a fake Bible, if you ask me, and put themselves in that and think that what they did years ago, growing across the planet Earth, doing missions, going in people in indigenous people's land, trying to convert them to Christianity, killing them off when they refuse to, and putting them in slavery and all kind of non-cynical invasion and occupation bullshit, and using that book to put themselves in that position so they can sit up and say that you are going against God in some shape or form, whatever God they're talking about. You know what I'm saying? So when you talk about going up against these people, the first thing they're going to say is you're anti-racist, anti-Semitic, and all these different things to reverse the blame off of themselves onto the righteous who's trying to get this situation to be settled and peace on the land. They do not want peace. How we know this? Look at the many hundreds of years of war across the planet Earth that have been going on, the injustice that has been done to the original people of the land who they invade and occupy, such as we see in Sudan today, such as we see in Ethiopia, such as we see in the Congo, so as we see in Zimbabwe, such as we see in many, because remember Zimbabwe was a new state, and all these different things that went on. This is why Bob Marley was there for Zimbabwe. You see what I'm saying? And he sung in Zimbabwe, you know what I'm saying? And he made a song called Zimbabwe. You know what I mean? You need to look up that song called Zimbabwe, by the great legendary and the legend himself, Robert Onesta Marley. You know what I mean? But this is what they do. And this is what Bob Marley was talking about. Rather than the nations get along, they have been invading and killing and doing all type of big bullshit back and forth and back. You know what I mean? So what we see going on in the Gaza Strip is no more than a product of the French, the British, the Zionists, the Ottoman Turks, and all the tyrants of planet Earth in itself. We're not just talking only solely about the regular people who have come to their understanding of what this earth and human life is about in their country. We're not talking about those that have some sense, but the mind frame that has been instilled in the United States, even with the Ottoman Turks going back many, 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 many years, same with the French and the British and the rest of them, is no more than a barbaric group of people, we can call barbarians. Same with the British. Ain't no different. What make you think the British is so righteous because they're talking about having a cup of tea and a croissant? Now, the language don't speak for the conduct of what you have done and what you are still doing today.
And that covenant was real clear. If you bless Israel, I will bless you. If you curse Israel, I will curse you. And then in the New Testament, it was confirmed that all nations would be blessed through you. So
that's a lie.
You do not know about that.
That's a lie. That's a lie. That's a fabricated story.
Okay.
Yes,
that's a lie.
Sounds familiar.
That's a lie.
Do you consider that a serious issue? I mean, do you want Columbia University to be cursed by God? Of the Bible?
You see? You see?
Definitely
You
not.
see?
Okay.
You see? You
Well, that's
see?
good.
See how they use God?
Much of the questioning on Wednesday focused on Columbia's handling of faculty.
See how you put
New York
God in
Republican
it? See how
Congressmember
you use
Elise
God as a
Stefanik
tool
led the
to
charge.
block you
She grilled the
from the
president about
wickedness
her
that they
testimony
do?
on both the protests at
Pay
Columbia
attention.
and about Professor Joseph Massad, a professor of modern Arab politics who chairs an academic review committee.
And Dr. Shafiq, you realize that at some of these events, the slurs and the chants have been F the Jews, death to Jews, F Israel, no safe place, death to the Zionist state, Jews out. You don't think those are anti-Jewish?
Completely anti-Jewish, completely
So
unacceptable.
you changed your testimony on that
But
issue as
Jewish
well? So
ain't
there have been anti-Jewish
people. They were
protests.
made of people.
I didn't get to finish my sentence.
You're
So what I was
made of
going to
people.
say was there were
You're not
protests that
original
were called
to
that
anyone.
were-
You're just an invader
That's not what you were
of even
asked.
people's
You were
minds.
asked, were there any anti-Jewish protests?
listen
And you
to
said
it.
no.
So the protest was not labeled
Listen.
as an anti-Jewish protest.
I'm not
It was
asking what it
labeled
was
as an
labeled.
anti-Israeli government.
The question wasn't
Listen
what
to
it
the
was
bullying.
labeled.
She's
But
bullying.
anti-Semitic incidents happened, or anti-Semitic things were said. So I just
It
wanted
is
to
an
finish.
anti-Jewish protest. You agree with that? You change your testimony?
Congresswoman,
See how she's bullying her? And it's a fake.
anti-Jewish
fake
things
group
were
of people.
said at protests. Yes.
Thank you for changing your testimony.
Fake.
Another instance when
Using
you
their
changed your
money
testimony
and
is
their
you
money
stated that Professor
to
Massad
influence our
was no
government,
longer chair.
using their
Then
money
you
to
stated he's
invade
under
countries and
investigation.
use our
He
government
is
to
still
back them up
chair
and do
on
it.
the website.
Same
So
as with the
has he been
French doing the
terminated
same
as chair?
thing. The Zionists and the British and the
Congressman,
rest of the
I want
Armamentists
to
and all of
confirm
them
the facts before
using
getting
their
back to
money
you.
I know you
to
confirmed that he
influence
was
our
under
government
investigation.
Yes, I can
into
confirm
backing
that.
them up
Did you confirm
into
he
the
was still the chair?
bullshit
I need
that
to
they
confirm
all
that.
are doing.
Well, let me ask you this. Will you make the commitment to
Shitty
remove him as
leadership.
chair?
Shitty.
I think that would be.
And this is what y'all voting for. How are
In
we
a
going to
statement
solve this?
emailed to Democracy Now!, Professor Joseph Massad said Republicans had, quote, fabricated statements about him and that it was, quote, news to him that he was under investigation. He said no one had spoken to him about his chairmanship of the committee in question. For more, we're joined by two guests. Nara Milanic is a professor of history at Barnard College,
But remember,
part of Columbia University,
Republicans have
who
been
co-wrote
invaded
an open letter
by
to
the same
President
group
Shafiq
that
titled
we
Jewish
call
faculty
demon
reject the
Democrats.
weaponization of
So don't think they're
anti-Semitism.
talking about
Professor
the real
Milanic is a
Republican
member of
Party.
the American
They're
Association
talking
of
about the
University
ones
Professors,
who are
or
bipartisan
AAUP.
and cross party
Professor
lines,
Rebecca Jordan
who
Young
always
is
been
also with
Democrat,
us.
but
Professor
put
in the
over on
Department of
Republican
Women's,
side
Gender,
in
and
order to do the
Sexuality
garbage
Studies at
they
Barnard
do
College at
and keep
Columbia.
us going back
She's a
and
member
forth
of the
between
Columbia
each other
chapter of the
as if
American
they really going to
Association
solve
of University
anything other
Professors.
than
She's
what they're
also a
doing,
member of the faculty
invading,
and staff
killing
for Justice in
bloody
Palestine. We welcome you
man.
both to Democracy Now! Professor Rebecca Jordan Young, let's begin with you. Your response to these hearings yesterday.
My response is, well, first, let me just thank you for the opportunity to talk with you. It's so important. My first response is that what happened at those hearings yesterday should be of grave concern to
That's right.
everybody,
That's right.
regardless of their feelings on Palestine,
That's
regardless
right.
of their
It
politics.
should be of grave
what happened
concern.
yesterday was
Bullying.
a demonstration of
Bullying.
the growing and intensifying attack on liberal education writ large.
That's right.
So there was an opportunity yesterday for President Shafiq to come forward to mount a robust defense of the university as a unique site for a debate of difficult ideas, for the fact that slogans can't be reduced to sound bites, that in fact that what happens at the university is deep discussion, deep thought, and that in fact instead what we got was a live performance of her not just throwing protesters and specific professors under the bus, which we somewhat anticipated, as awful as that was, but in fact throwing the entire university system under the bus, throwing out established policies and procedures of the university, throwing out rules that have been established by the American Association of University Professors for decades as best practices, actually announcing unilateral decisions on faculty members on live television, which she doesn't actually have the authority under the university to do. And I could say more, but really I was astonished. It went worse even than any of us had expected.
Exactly.
So, Professor Naira Milanish, if you could also respond, what most struck you about the hearing and what Professor Young just said,
this
that the
speaks for the
debate,
power structure
rather than it being
that
a
is
debate
actually
about
running
difficult questions,
under the
it became
sheets,
extremely narrow.
scheming
And
years
Columbia President
with their money
Shafiq
and their
seemed
bullshit.
to capitulate almost entirely, as Professor Young said, through the entire university apparatus under the bus. If you could respond to that, what was your sense?
So my sense, one of the things that I learned is that congressional hearings are kind of like social media, which is to say they are wonderful places for political performance, for political theater, for sound bites, for gotcha moments, for interrupting one another. They are really terrible spaces to have deep debates about serious and contentious issues. And academic freedom is one of those issues. What goes on campus and what is happening on campus right now is one of those issues. Where my freedom to speak ends and your right to be free of harassment begins, those are really difficult questions. And a congressional hearing, Twitter, are not the places to be litigating these issues. The place to be talking about these issues is on college campuses, in classrooms, in university quads, in dorm room hallways, Universities are precisely the place where we should be having these deep and difficult conversations.
That's right.
And instead, we have seen time and again that university administrators are ceding this conversation to people who have very different motives, right? And who are engaging on these issues for very, very different reasons.
Making a mockery, a clown
Professor
show.
Young, about the establishment of this congressional committee to begin with, and what we saw happening
because
in
the
December,
Jews got them in their
which
pocket.
led to the resignation of two of the presidents of the top universities in the U.S.
So-called invaders.
Well, I think it's
in my
been clear
father's
from the
land.
very beginning that this task force, that this committee was actually never about anti-Semitism. This was about a broad attack on liberal education.
That's right.
And, we have many people on this committee who've never before expressed any concern about anti-Semitism. And what we saw was
anti-Semitism is a trick word.
Anti-Semitism, or a particular interpretation of that, a very precise, very politically aligned interpretation of that, has been procedurally split off from discussion about all other forms of harassment, discrimination, violence, etc.
That's right.
And this is really contrary to what we do in the university. Certainly it's contrary to what we do in my field, where broadly, this has been created and used as an opportunity to attack all forms of liberatory critical scholarship. It's been a place where critical race studies have gotten attacked. It's attacking DEI. Throughout, unfortunately, the university presidents who've been questioned, and yesterday President Shafiq among them, and the rest of the members of the Columbia leadership, played along with this willingness to split these groups apart. But it's absolutely against what we do both in scholarship and justice activism. We try to help students understand the intertwined nature of systems of power and oppression and discrimination.
So if you could say in the past, how has Columbia University, in other instances of harassment for other reasons, how has Columbia University dealt with those complaints of harassment, persecution, etc., by students or by faculty?
Well, there are disciplinary procedures in place and have been for a very long time, and they involve members from all sectors of the university that both develop the policies and who are involved in adjudication of particular complaints. What we've seen happening in the run-up to this particular hearing is it looked like the university was doubling down or tripling down on just how much surveillance and policing they could demonstrate ahead of time to say, look, we are a surveillance campus. We're a law and order campus. There won't be protest on the university campus.
Why not?
Columbia has historically been a center of protest and free speech, which is essential for our role as preparing students to be active members of a democracy. And instead, what what's happening now is an arrogation of the right to decide all of those procedures just at the level of the administration, to actually treat protest itself as dangerous and as violent, which is really, really bone-chilling to me. The other thing that they've done is actually outsource a lot of the investigations and the hearings, especially that our students have been subjected to law firms and private investigation firms that are not in any way aligned with understanding the mission and the history of the university as a site for deep and principled disagreements.
But are
I wanted to
Democrats
go to Democratic Congressmember Ilhan Omar, one of only two Muslim Congress members questioning Columbia
of the
President Shafiq.
Republicans? This is what they've done.
Seen anti-Muslim protests on campus?
I have seen, we have had pro-Israeli demonstrations on campus.
No. But just
not,
a protest that was
not,
against Muslims.
No, I
have you
not.
seen one against Arabs?
No, I have not.
Have you seen one against Palestinians?
No, I have not.
Have you seen one against Jewish people? Have you seen a protest saying we are against Jewish people?
No, I have seen.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. There has been a rise in targeting and harassment against anti-war protesters because
What
it's been
about
pro-war
Africans,
and anti-war
black
protesters
people?
is
You
what it sounds like,
jackass!
Correct.
Don't come with that bullshit. You invaded
Congressmember
Africa.
Ilhan Omar, one of two
You did.
Congresswomen,
Talking about
Muslim Congresswomen in the House
Semitic.
in January.
The Jews under the
Congressmember Omar,
transatlantic
also
slave
in a
trade.
hearing brought up the attack
What are you
on
talking about?
Palestinian students in January who say they were sprayed with a foul-smelling chemical. 8 students were reportedly hospitalized, complaining of burning eyes, headaches, and nausea, and other symptoms. Organizers allege the attack was carried out by 2 Columbia
come into your
students
country
who
and
are
they
former
control the
members of the
political
Israeli
system.
military, using a
Using their
chemical
money
weapon
and
known as
power,
skunk
control
that the
the
Israeli
banking
military and
system.
security
They
forces
control
regularly
every
deploy
fucking thing
against
and got these
Palestinians.
jackass
Professor
leaders that you
Young,
keep
if you can comment on that
electing,
incident of
going
what
right
happened,
along
what
with the
happened to these
bullshit.
students.
Yes,
How come
absolutely.
Palestine is in this
First,
after
I'll just say that in
75
the
years or
1980s,
more?
when I was an undergraduate,
And that goes
I
for
was
the Arabs
an
as
organizer
well.
against, and I was an anti-apartheid organizer,
have been doing
and I was
garbage in
involved
African
in a
land
lot of
for
demonstrations
years.
on my campus. My
But when it comes
colleagues,
to the
students
African
all around
people,
the country,
I don't see
were
all this
faced
standing
with a
up.
lot
I
of
don't see all of this and that and the third
condescending,
against what they
policies
did to
and a lot
African people
of,
and still do it
pressures from
today.
administrations and crackdowns. Never ever have I seen
Get out
something
of
like what
my face.
happened on the Columbia campus. Never, first of all, have I seen a situation where the administration sets up students to say
British
that
also
protests
funded the
themselves are
transatlantic
problematic.
slave
You
trade.
can't be
The
against
French
the war. You
also
can't
helped
be
with the
against
transatlantic slave
indiscriminate
trade.
bombing
The
of civilians. I mean, what's
Arabs
been
that were
lost
in the
in this
land
is
at
the
the time
situation in
invaded
Gaza.
also
And
was a
at
part
the
of the
same time,
transatlantic slave
what
trade.
we
The
saw
Ottoman
is
Turks
that the
are part of
university
the
did not
transatlantic slave
respond
trade.
to that attack on our students.
Get out of my
Students were never
face.
contacted.
Germany,
The students
all
who
of them.
were actually attacked with that
And now
chemical
they want to
weapon
clean up
were
their
not
act
supported
in your
until
eyes,
after
but
the
do
fact,
damage
after
shit. And
intense
then when
pressure
we
from
come up and
faculty.
speak about it,
The
in this
administration
time,
said that they would
all of a
offer them
sudden,
some
we are
resources,
some
but they
murder.
also said that
Oh,
students who were
But not
subject to
them.
this skunk
Still
attack
over there bloody
would not
murder
be exempt from the
on the
sanctions
people,
imposed
killing
on them for
gutting them like
protesting.
fishes.
And I
You know what I'm
also
saying?
think it's
Probably been
important to
drinking their
say
blood.
that these policies
You're
against
nasty,
protest
yeah.
are not long-standing policies. They're new
Get out of my
policies that have been created on the fly, sometimes after the fact of particular demonstrations. And the inquiry hearings that are being held are getting more and more draconian, so that there's a dragnet,
That's right.
basically, of sweeping up all kinds of students that they target,
That's
often
right.
because of wearing hijab, often because of being near other students, being friends with students who are
All right.
protesting. So it's sweep everybody up, ask questions later. And it's so chilling to me.
Oh, not to
Professor
me.
Lanish, in your open
Because
letter,
we should have
the
never
open letter
let them
you,
in this country.
wrote prior to this hearing
They
to
should have remained a
Columbia
wandering
President Shafiq,
wanderer
you
just
said
like
it's
they
absurd
were.
to claim that anti-Semitism is
Claiming land
rampant
that
on
don't even
Columbia's
belong to them.
campus. So
During
why do you think
strategical
that so many
warfare
people are convinced
amongst
that this
your
is the case?
crazy
And as
ass.
Professor Young said, nothing like what's happened at Columbia has happened in the past with protests.
Europe,
How do you
auntie.
understand why
Like
this
they
has
did the
happened?
bars in Bosnia.
Yeah, so I think this is a really important question, and I had the opportunity to author this
Ireland.
open letter to President Shafiq in advance of her
India.
testimony, with almost 24 of my colleagues who identify as Jewish. And it's important to note here that
Invaders.
Columbia has a large Jewish population of Jewish faculty and Jewish students, but there is no such thing as a Jewish opinion, right, on campus. This is a really heterogeneous group, a diverse group of people with very different experiences, different identities, and different politics, different ideas, different relationships, or even non-relationships with Israel, right? And we had the sort of impression, the sense that people were speaking for us, right? People were assuming that we needed to be protected, that we felt vulnerable, people assuming that we all shared a particular political point of view. And we wrote this letter to President Shafiq to clarify that, to explain sort of the diversity of different political opinions on campus, and to question this idea of a single hegemonic Jewish position or voice
Trying
or
to split the
experience.
nation.
And the letter goes on
These foreigners is coming to America
to
trying to split the
implore
nation.
President Shafiq
A lot of
not
this
to
is due to trying
capitulate
to
to
split us
this
up.
kind of politics
Divide
of
us.
weaponizing anti-Semitism. One of the remarkable things that we have seen in recent months since the fall are the ways that right-wing
This is
politicians
how
have suddenly discovered
away
they've
with
had
this
a
for
come to
75
Jesus
years in the
moment,
Gaza Strip.
and have discovered Jews and have discovered
Dividing,
this scourge of
influencing our
anti-Semitism.
government,
And of course, many
influencing
of
the
these
people
folks are people
you
who
elect.
flirt with white nationalism, right?
You know what I'm saying?
In their everyday
Pay
life, which is
millions
to
of
say,
dollars to
with
them.
actual
For them to
anti-Semites,
fuck
right?
us up. And they've been
So
doing it
we
how long?
wanted to make the
Because these
case,
same group of
and that
people
my colleague has
consider
made as
people to
well,
be
that anti-Semitism
cattle.
here is being used as a
Look it
wedge.
up
It's being
in
used
their
as a
Bibles
Trojan
and
horse
their books.
for a very
They
different
consider people
political
to be
agenda,
cattle.
and that is a broader and deeper kind of desire or effort to insert politics
Same thing they did in
into the
Germany.
university. So we can see how right-wing politicians, even yesterday on display in the congressional hearings, have a bigger agenda, a bigger axe to grind. They are interested in undermining academic freedom, in attacking wokeism. This is
But they're not
about
Republicans, they are
anti-Semitism so much
Democrats
as attacking
in Republican
areas
clothes.
of inquiry
Until
and
you
teaching,
understand that,
whether it's about
this is the way you
voting
will see it.
rights or vaccine safety or climate change, right? Arenas of inquiry that are uncomfortable or inconvenient or controversial for certain groups. And so this is essentially what we're
people you're
saying.
talking
Anti-Semitism
about
being
are Democrats, they're
weaponized
not
in a broad
Republicans.
attack on the
They are
university.
in the
And I think
Republican
that's
Party, have
really
been
worrisome.
infiltrated, even
And
going back
we're
to
also
the days of the
looking
Tulsa
to
massacre.
to think about what
you think
happens
that
then.
was about?
If this is what is going on now, what
That
happens
wasn't taking
if
over the
Trump,
Republican Party and
is
driving the
reelected? And
African
then we get
black people out.
these inclinations coming not just from
Many
Congress,
of
but
those
also from higher up.
massacres.
Well, we want to thank you both for being with us, Nara Milanic.
The massacres was to take over the Republican Party. The Republican Party was taken over probably in the Tulsa and many other revolts of white people on black people
the weaponization of
to shut
anti-Semitism.
down
We also want
the
to thank
Republican Party
Professor
taking
Rebecca
over
Jordan Young
and
in the Department of
controlling
Women's,
both
Gender, and
sides from
Sexuality
one
Studies
side.
at Barnard
You
College,
gotta understand
Columbia,
that.
member of the faculty and